First of all, I want to thank you all for wanting to serve your community in what is often a thankless job. It seems like no matter what you do, which way you vote, it's always a long way to a large group of people. So thank you for that. I'm going to ask you some questions that I got on ChatGPT. Anyways, I'm going to ask some questions I've been working on, and you have between 2 or 3 minutes to respond. So with that, let me begin with Jen. In your view, why are designated historic buildings in neighborhoods important to this community?
Thank you for the question, and thank you all for being here, and thank you to my fellow candidates. The question is, why are historically designated buildings important for neighborhoods?
And neighborhoods, yes.
And neighborhoods. Well, first of all, historic preservation, like public art and sustainability, are key to property values and to economic development. Second of all, historic designation is key to us having pride of place and telling our own unique story. Each building has its own unique flavor for our city that's ours and ours alone. So preserving that is key to telling our story as a city. Whether the building is in a neighborhood or it's in the downtown core, each and every one of those cases are unto themselves and deserve review, deserve discussion, and if they meet the criteria, deserve to be preserved. It's just very, very important for our own identity.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Same question.
Same question?
Yes.
Hello, thank you everyone for joining us. So we have a historic building in the Arlington Park neighborhood. Well, we have a few, but the Victor Lundy St. Paul Lutheran Church. And that, yes, we love that church. Not only is it a part of the community, so for those of you that don't know, it's on Bay Vista, and there are 3 buildings. There's the church that was built in 1959. There was the education building built in 1962, and then the sanctuary built in 1969. The education building had leaks in 2019 and needed some repair. So the Alliance, along with Preserve Arlington Park Neighborhood Committee, which I'm a founding member of, we wrote a letter in favor of the state grant. So our history is so important. Our historic structures are very important to the community, very important to the neighborhoods. And not only is that structure important to the neighborhood, the pastor of that church lives in our neighborhood, attends our neighborhood meetings and our community functions. And they also give back to the community by having Tuesday night 5:30 free meals, Saturday mornings 9 to 10:30 our food pantry. So we love our historic structures in the Arlington Park neighborhood and in our city as well. And I've been fighting for years about protecting them and saving them at the Commission and Historic Preservation Board.
Okay, thank you. John, what do you think?
Thank you, and thank you all for being here today. My name is John Harshman. I've been here 52 years, and there's a lot of history there. My family has been involved in documenting history, Sarasota's history for years, and we kind of have a historic gene in our family. I own 2 historic buildings downtown. I know what it's like to keep them maintained and to keep them up and keep that historic integrity. The historic buildings are not just about the buildings. They're not just about the architecture or the features about it. It's about the people that occupy them and the people that built them and the people that designed them. And that's really our true history, is all the people. And the buildings are a reminder of those people. So whether they're single-family homes in a neighborhood or that need to be preserved as we go forward, or a commercial building downtown that needs to be preserved, U.S. Garage for one or some of the others, it's very important that we work on that and to keep them preserved. I worked very hard with the John Ringling Towers Foundation back in the mid-90s. We thought we had it saved. We had 2 uses going in the building, and obviously it did not work, but There's been a long history of citizens in Sarasota working really hard to try to save the history that we have and the memory of the people that created that history. Thank you.
Sure. Hi everyone, my name is Evgeny Zurkovsky, and why is it important? I remember a saying I heard in college or even high school: if you don't know where you came from, you won't know where to go. And this is the reason why policy, codes, laws, they're all written in historical struggles, sometimes in blood, sometimes in celebrations. And this is the core of why it's important to preserve these things. Another reason is it makes up the character and charm of what Sarasota is. My neighborhood, Alta Vista, does not have any fancy historical buildings. It only has some mid-century, some Rambler, and I've watched it in the last few years perish to demolition, to concrete square boxes, and I think it's everybody's part to preserve these things. For example, I built my own house in 2021, and I made sure to incorporate elements from mid-century, from Eichler style, because even if I don't get elected to the commission, I think we all should take part in preserving the history and the character of this place. Thank you.
Good, thank you.
Hi, Rob Romanecki. Thank you everyone for being here, fellow candidates. Historic buildings have been part of my life. I spent most of my career at a UNESCO listed World Heritage Site at the Frank Lloyd Wright Solomon Art Guggenheim, and it was my job to protect that building and make sure that it maintained its integrity to the utmost of original construction that we could. And the neighborhoods here in Sarasota is what makes Sarasota unique to a lot of other cities in this state. The Newtown neighborhood and the historic parts of that, the Leonard Reed House, and I was so glad that it got moved instead of destroyed. And we have houses that are with the mid-century modern, the Paul Rudolph. Every neighborhood has such a unique aspect, and history is what everything about this city is, starting with Ringwood and the Kazan. I mean, they're all part of what makes us Sarasota and what makes us unique. And to me, Sarasota is the greatest city in Florida. And I just want to make sure that we protect what we can, and hopefully we can do that with education, but also enthusiasm. Because without that enthusiasm, you're just going to get people butting heads together. So we got to do it positively and make sure that everyone else knows what these buildings mean and the people that were part of those buildings in the beginning. Thank you.
Good. Just keep the microphone and we'll just go back down the row. What role should historic preservation play in shaping the future growth and redevelopment of the city of Sarasota?
It's the fabric of the city, why we are what we are. I think, obviously, every city has to move forward if it comes from a more resilient infrastructure, but we can, like what Jeff said, he built his house to specifications that were similar to what makes us a great city, the mid-century modern. It's such a big part of Sarasota. So the historical part of that is we can do both. We could preserve, we could document, educate, and if unfortunately something is gone, put up a plaque. Let people know this is where this was, this is where this person was, and what the importance of that person is to Sarasota. And just keep it moving forward and just incorporate both the future and the past. And I think we can get there. There's enough smart people in this room that care about the past, but also care about the future, because the future is going to happen whether we want it to or not. And it's just how do we get there together?
Okay.
So, John, you called Sarasota a cave of tall buildings. And while it's true, I moved here in 2019, and I still think it has a ton of character that's worth preserving. And, if you go, for example, to Europe, I think they've done a good job. You go to Paris, you go to Krakow, Poland, And there are buildings that are like 400 years old, and somehow, you know, the ground is now 10 foot higher, but they still made an effort, a successful effort to preserve these places. So I think we can be mindful in our development and preserve those landmarks and preserve the characters through architecture and design. And you know, I'm not sure if you mean the historic preservation from, you know, policy standpoint or organizational, but I think it's all important to come together and partner on preservation.
Okay. Let me ask you this, John, for John. Do you agree that there's enough of Sarasota's past left to give it the character that it used to have?
No. But that doesn't mean that what we have, we shouldn't preserve. We should absolutely preserve what we have. And this building and the building next door were moved from the Lukewood Park, which is where Mount Street is now, over to Florida Avenue, now where Cityside is. And Jim Nyland, I worked with Jim Nyland when he purchased these two properties and had his office in there, purchased them from, I think it was Sarasota Magazine was in there before. They were the real pioneers to move these two buildings to the Rosemary District back in the late 80s, and they stayed there all through the 90s. And that was back when the Rosemary District wasn't cool. So there were a lot of people back then that were interested in preserving our past. And as we go into our master plan update, we need to strengthen components of that so that we are preserving what we have. It's sad to think about some of the history that we've lost, but it's also encouraging to know that we've preserved a lot of the history, and we have some wonderful buildings here in town that do harken back to the past and to a more quiet time.
Thank you. Well, do you think there's enough here, enough left from quote the good old days of yesterday Sarasota to preserve and continue the character?
No, we lost a lot of our historic structures. So I've lived here for 37 years. I spoke about the Miramar Apartments, gone. I spoke about Palm Apartments, gone. I spoke about McClellan Park School, gone. Let's see, what else did I speak about? Colston Hotel, we still have. Yeah. So it's very important that we keep what we have left. And John was mentioning this church. It actually first started, Peter Crocker in 1901 built the church on Bee Ridge in US 41 for cemetery. That's where its first location. It's been moved twice since then. This is the third place. So we can keep our history. The first time this building was moved from Bee Ridge up north, it had to be taken apart plank by plank. There was no way to move it. So that's how much they cared about the history. They took it apart, moved it, and saved it. So we need to do better. I'm wearing a t-shirt. These are all of our historic, our people that have built our historic structures. This is the architecture that we have lost so much of it. So Twitchell House is gone. Luckily we saved the Butterfly Garden at the Alta Vista School. So we are getting better at it, but we need to strengthen our codes. We need to give more incentives to save what we do have. Because every time I drive down 75 and I see that brown downtown historic district sign, I'm like, oh, I don't know, we don't have that much money. We got the press building, we have Orange Blossom, we have the opera, not that many more. So whatever we can do to save whatever we have left, I'm 100% for it.
I just want to check one thing you said. The Miramar Apartments are still there.
They're there, but they're still there, but we are just redoing the facade and getting the 218-story building.
Yeah.
So it is changing.
Thank you. The question was about historic preservation plan and shaping the future growth. I think everybody will say, yes, historic preservation should be an important role in shaping the future growth. And it's a really nice thing to say, but unless it has teeth in it, it means nothing. The words mean nothing.
Yeah.
So what we need to do is there are several things that we need to do before we can get to historic preservation shaping our future growth. Number one is, I would like to propose that historic preservation department comes out from under the planning department. That it's an independent department of all the departments. Because the historic preservation department needs to push back against the planning department, and you can't do that when you work for the person telling you to approve something. You can't say no. Second of all, the process needs to change. Right now we have, for a designation, you go to the Historic Preservation Board, then you go to the City Commission for approval. Two processes for a designation. For a demo, you only go to the Historic Preservation Board if they allow it done. It should be reversed. If you want to demo something, you go to the Historic Preservation Board, makes a recommendation to the City Commission. Demolition should be a two-step process, not a one-stop process. And designation should be a one-step process, not a two-step process. Third of all, the standards for review, there are 7 of them. Criteria 3, 4, and 7 are complete outs for demolishing a structure. One has to do, is it materials available to reconstruct the building? That's not a historic structure. The other one is this the last existing sample? That's a ridiculous one. And then the last one, which is the most egregious, is can you receive reasonable economic value out of the property? It's often seen as, interpreted as in the future, but it's not for today. If that one doesn't change, we will lose these like hotcakes.
Thank you. Keep your microphone. I heard, it may not be true, but I heard the state legislature wants to pass a law that developers can only donate $5 for commission candidates.
I've not heard that.
What did you say if that was true?
I would say if they make that for developers, they should stick to it. Yeah.
Would you agree with such a proposal?
Sure.
How do you think that would change what has happened in Sarasota?
I don't know about that so much, all joking aside, but I think the city needs to do better and we can do better. You can tell that I'm very passionate about this. I've been working very, very hard in the city of Sarasota to save some structures, been successful with some, unsuccessful with others. It requires a 5-member commission, you need 3 votes. And so we really need to give the tools to our Historic Preservation Board to be able to do what we're asking them, what you're asking them to do, so that we can do what you want us to do.
Right. Well, my mind is trying to recover from going blank, but
No worries. I have so much information, my head goes far off.
many voters believe that the wishes of developers are given first priority over their wishes. Would you comment on that?
Can you just repeat the first part of that question?
You know, many voters believe that the wishes of the developers take priority over the wishes of the general population.
I agree. I 100% agree. I've been showing up at City Hall for over a decade speaking on local issues. And most of the time I'm on the losing side. So the developers seem to always get their way. I think we need to do a better job at following our advisory boards. The Historic Preservation Board often denies demolition permits, and then it goes to the commission level, and they approve it. Appeals. Appeal. So, yeah, I think developers have been having a good time in Sarasota, and we know development's gonna happen, but I think we can do better at keeping a mix of the old and the new. I think we can do better with, like I said, incentivizing as much as we can to save our history, and give somebody, we need to start literally working, have a real conversation with developers. How can you help us maintain and keep our structures? How can we work together to keep what we have, and instead of just keep tearing everything down and getting our 18-story buildings lot line to lot line, 7 as many units as we can on the acreage.
Thank you.
So let's start taking care of our history.
Thank you. John?
Sure. The reason why it looks like the developers are taking advantage is because they know the code. And therein lies our problem. We need to fix the code. We are in such a mess with our development code, and it's been changed over the years, not to our favor, and not necessarily because the commissioners that we've had at those times when there were changes were developer friendly, but because they didn't understand the unintended consequences of those code changes. And we need to take some serious look at what we have in our code so that we don't have projects come through like the Obsidian. And there are some code changes there that we can make that are relatively simple, but we need to make them, and we need to make them now. Fortunately, we do have a little bit of a respite because it looks like the market's slowing a little bit, but we can't sit on our hands. We need to make sure that those code changes are taken care of so that the community gets what it wants in the new development. Because as I've said, and as we all acknowledge, development's going to come, but we want the kind of development that we want. We don't want somebody else's style of development because they found a loophole in the code that works for them but doesn't work for you.
Yeah, so I think this is the reason why most of us are running, is that the residents and local orgs and biz are not being heard. And I think there are multiple reasons for that. Bad code and legislation that went through in the last few years. And I think, people that, your typical commissioner pipeline, they come through certain channels, organizations, and they're become known because, they get a lot of people that try to convince them otherwise. It's like, they probably don't know, but often they don't know themselves. And when a developer lawyer shows up in a suit and a nice presentation, it's very compelling. And when their staff that have career aspirations or playing SimCity with our town push, then it's too overwhelming. So we need to elect somebody that has a self-awareness of why they make the decisions that they do and remind themselves that they are there to represent you, not for any other reason. And when we start electing people like that, that's when that's going to change.
Thank you, Rob.
I agree that the developers do take advantage of the situation, but I think where we as citizens and preservation society and historical people want, what we can do is before it is sold to the developer, we have to get to the people who want to keep it preserved and not get torn down and put up an 18-story building. So we have to educate ahead of time. I think we need to expand the 6 to save should be even more, and give tours, go to schools, get younger people involved, let them get excited about history. I know both our kids, they're 16 and 20, and they're so into history because it's a big part of our lives. We care about the history of here, where we came from, and making history for where we're going. And I think back to the code, yes, the codes have to change, but the codes across the board for a lot of stuff that goes on in the city definitely favor developers at the moment, but there's a happy medium. Unfortunately, we can't change them right now because of the SB 180 and the live local, but I think if we work on educating the people who own the buildings before they're sold to developers, we'll be able to protect a lot more than what we have, and we'll move forward that way to make it a stronger historic city.
Well, let me ask you this, given that everybody more or less agrees across the board, would it be beneficial if the city had an attorney that just dealt with that? I know we have a city attorney, but he deals with a lot of things. Would it be helpful?
That comes back to me to cost effectiveness. Can we afford to have an independent attorney that comes from taxpayer money just for that? If that's what the people want, and that's where they want their tax dollars to go, I would say yes, and I would vote for that if I was a commissioner. But that would have to be up to people. We have to do some type of referendum asking if we could have that. That would be the greatest scenario, because if you have a dedicated person who would hopefully be impartial to both sides and give us the honest truth of what's historic, what's worth saving, can we save it, is it cost effective, where is the money coming from to do that? But if we do that, I think we have a better shot of preserving those.
Let me ask you this. There was a statue at City Hall, like Jack Hartley's called Nobody's Looking, Nobody's Listening. They're not looking either, but especially. think anybody at City Hall is listening? And if so, who, and how does that manifest itself?
I think people at City Hall are listening. I think staff is trying to do their job, and they have what the code is, and they have to stick to that. And if the code's messed up, they still have to stick to that. I think commissioners do listen. I think one of the hardest parts of being a commissioner, and I haven't been one, but just from my observations, is the sunshine law keeps commissioners from being able to discuss something ahead of time. And I understand why it's in place, but I think it hurts us that we have to wait until a city commission meeting and we sit down and we listen to a couple hours of testimony, and then we have to make 5 independent decisions. We have a commission that wants to move this city forward, wants to protect what we have, and I think the sunshine law makes it very difficult.
I know that in the 50s and 60s even, Ken Thompson, who was the city manager, he and his commissioners were piling his Pontiac, drive to the meeting, get everything ironed out, and then the meeting just went as smooth as butter.
I just heard that story 2 days ago. John Martin.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think the sunshine law is great in the sense that it's trying to stop corruption.
Right.
And in that aspect, we need something of that nature. But I think we need to be able to communicate together outside of just sitting in City Hall.
Right.
And I have an idea, and I don't know if it's legal, let's do a podcast where anybody can call in, it's live, so it's not pre-recorded, and we could talk about issues as commissioners. Instead of just doing it in City Hall when it's a set thing, any other option, I think, would help the city move forward, stop the animosity that so many people have towards each other, and everything becomes a separate faction, and we go in our corners, and we put up our dukes, and I think that doesn't serve anybody's purpose, and it just causes frustration, because when it comes down to it, it's just gonna be what's in the code. You're eventually gonna get there. You could try and stop something, but if it's by code, you'll delay it, you'll appeal, and it keeps going and going and going, but at the end of the day, it gets approved because that's what the law is. So we need to work towards having the ability as a municipality of changing those laws to suit us, not Tallahassee.
Okay, great. What do you think about the Jack Hartley statute? Nobody's listening.
I think it's very representative of current reality, which is kind of funny because it's been, decades since we've been there. Can I address the 2 questions real quick? Yeah, so sunshine. I think the problem is, like Rob said, we treat it like a hearing, right? And my idea is to split into statement, discussion, decision, right? So commissioners, before they even go to the commission meeting, they put out their stance, right? And then when they meet the first time, they do a discussion, like a seminar, not like a hearing. And then they come to a next meeting and they can do summary decision. So that's perfectly sunshine legal that we can do today. Now, regarding the lawyer that's going to fight those developments, I think it's a waste of money. The county, they have a very specific issue they're fighting, but the law at large prevents us from making any of those code changes more restrictive right now. On the other hand, I have like a bucket of 5 things that we can do today. I'm happy to go into it later if you let me, but there's things that we are not doing within the current framework, and that's really frustrating if you start doing them.
Okay. Yeah.
Sure. I knew Jack Cartledge. I know his daughter, Dory, and absolutely I agree with the sentiment that his sculpture conveyed in 1967 when it was installed at City Hall, and today. And it's not unique to Sarasota. Communities go through this time when their government doesn't listen to them. But I can give you some clear examples where we had citizens that came and spoke to the city commission, knowledgeable citizens, and gave them good advice on an ordinance or something that they were deciding on right then. They were coming in open to the public. As example, the one that I use is the density bonus downtown. We had a citizen, lives on Bird Key. He was a prolific speaker at the city commission. and he came in and expressed his concern about the 4 times density bonus for all of downtown, but he was reading the tea leaves and said, I'm sure the commission is going to pass it, but at least put a sunset clause in it. And all 3 of the other downtown density bonuses that we've had, 2 in the Rosemary District and 1 downtown, all had sunset clauses in it. He was very clear about this. It was not discussed by staff. It was not discussed by the commission when they voted on the ordinance 5-0. And it's very difficult to walk that back. We may be able to do it, but we may run into Burt Harris Acts and lots of other issues. The citizen was giving the commission really good advice then. Nobody listened to him. So yes, it is an issue.
Okay, thank you. Well,
So, like I said, I've been showing up over a decade speaking at City Hall, and some are listening and some aren't. Some commissioners listen, some don't. Some staff listen, some don't. So I think some changes need to be made. We do have our new city manager now, so I'm hopeful. You know, I feel like City Hall has been kind of running wild the last almost 2 years without a city manager. I'm very hopeful with our new city manager. So I'm hopeful for the future of shifting the attitude and the culture at City Hall. I think city staff morale could be lifted up as well. So yeah, we could do better. And as your commissioner, I will have an open door policy. I will meet with you anytime to just discuss any issue you have. And I've said this before, but your priorities will be my priorities. I'm not running for any personal issues. I'm running because we are not being listened to. So I'm here to listen to you, learn from you, and stand up for you. And yeah, our voices have been muted for quite a while now. Thank you.
Jen?
I feel a little bit like this is that whisper game that you play and it becomes a completely different statement. So I think the question is about that nobody's listening to the statute. Well, like all art, it's interpreted many different ways and by the individual that's looking at it. I have heard that the statute actually represents the commissioner, who's the single person, and the people are not listening to the commissioner. That is another interpretation. Not that the commission's not listening to the people, but the people are not listening to
Well,
the
why
commissioner.
should the people listen to the commissioner if the people are the boss?
I agree.
It's the interpretation I have heard about this statute. I think it's actually mentioned in our app. We have a public art app where we get the artist or the artist's family to talk about each piece of public art. If you don't have it, please get it. It's wonderful. But that is an interpretation of it. Do I think the City Commission is listening? I think we can do a better job of listening. I think we should open up more opportunities. Often what we have is for those free discussions that we were talking about earlier, we'll have workshops. That's where we as commissioners can be more casual, call each other by different names, not wait to be called on to speak. It's much more of a conversation. But we could open that up to public comment, and we chose not to. I advocated that we keep it open to public comment, but the commission voted no. But that's one of the things that when you're on the commission, you're a body, you're 5 people, and you're one person, but the majority rules. And when you win a vote or you lose a vote, you accept the decision of the body. Very few instances do you appeal or you do try to get a new vote on the item. You want to keep that for limited cases, but you often have to accept the commission's vote and move along. But it doesn't mean you don't listen to the citizens. It doesn't mean that you don't care, but you do have to accept the board vote.
Right. John, you know, having known Jack Harley, did he name that? Nobody's listening?
I assume that he did name it. I don't know for a fact, and I would certainly look at the city's archives on that.
Where is that statue?
It's at City Hall. It's a patinaed brass statue just to the west of the City Hall building.
Okay.
So sorry.
Jen, do you know why the city chambers is designed as it is?
I do.
Would you tell the people, please?
Sure. It's designed very specifically where the people are higher and the city commission sits lower to be a visual reminder to the city commission that when you look out at the citizens that are out there listening to you, watching you and speaking to you, that you look up to them, that you work for them. It's a slight reminder, but it's very, very powerful.
Good, thank you. We'll start here this time. Rob, do you think the U.S. garage is historic and should it be saved?
I do think it's historic. That it was the first actual car garage in Sarasota, I think was really important. And I would have hoped that before that project even moved forward, and I know they're going for Live Local with that project, that it would have been discussed to keep that part of the project. It's such a big part of Sarasota, and I know it's not back from the 20s and everything, but
Actually, it is.
well, the modern use of it was
Oh,
much
yeah.
better. So it was changed, so that historic part of it is only historical in the sense that it was there originally. But it should have definitely been discussed with the developer before it happened. And I understand that the Live Local is like, okay, I can do what I want as long as it hits code. And, sorry.
No, I'm sorry, but I wanted to ask you, can you briefly explain what live local means?
Live local means that if you want to put, you have to put 40% of your building as affordable housing.
Oh, I see.
And from there, you could have the highest density and the highest height within a 1 mile radius of where you're putting your building. You do not go to the planning board, you do not go to the city commission, you just go to the development review. So it limits the city's ability to run its city.
Right, makes sense. Yeah. What do you think about, there's an 18-story building proposal to go up on Palm Avenue. What do you think about that?
You're talking about the US garage location?
No, I'm talking about on Palm Avenue or Obsidian or,
Well, I mean, the Obsidian for now has been defeated, right, I think.
has it? I thought it was still in the works.
Well, it's gonna come back to the commission after, what is
Review.
right, like the administrative review. So, look, so 4 years ago, there was a CCNA forum, and everybody promised that we're gonna, adjust the downtown overlay, or I can't remember what it's called exactly, but to limit the height, not just the number of stories. And look, I'm here because the commissioners of the last few years have not been good stewards of policy, the city, any kind of preservation, and we see it with projects like this. And the US garage too, like I have a lot to say about that. This is why I'm running, and I'm not happy about it just as you are, no. So.
Okay, thank you. John?
Sure, so I'll speak to both of them, to the U.S. Garage as well as the Obsidian. The U.S. Garage certainly is a historic building. I watched Frank Folsom Smith when he renovated it back in the 80s when they were planning the Strawberry Hill development there at Ringling and Pineapple going down to Palm, and it was going to preserve not just the U.S. Garage, but also all of the historic structures in Burns Court. And he and a local investor had gotten together and they had some big plans, and then, recessions came and people lost whatever. But the U.S. Garage still has some of the mechanicals from when it was a garage, and that was a very unique time in Sarasota's history. Back in the 20s and 30s, we had really the carriage trades, and we had the Ringlings and the Caples and the Crosbys and all kinds of industrial families that would come down here during the wintertime. And they would leave a car here, and that was the place where they stored it. And the car elevator and some of the mechanicals are still there. The Obsidian, fortunately, was defeated by the city commission. Now, we don't know if the developer's going to sue the city over it or not, but I have not heard that that's moving forward. So that was defeated, but it was processed and brought forward because the code is the problem, and the code needs to be changed. And when we have a code that leads the developer to design a project like that and process it through administrative approval and only comes to city commission after the neighbors challenge it, needs to be fixed. And there are several easy fixes in there. We talk about the trash and and the on-site delivery areas. He didn't meet the code for that, but he can claim those as a hardship. The developer can claim those as a hardship, write up his solution, and then deliver that to the city manager. And the city manager, one person, unelected person, can decide whether that's an acceptable fix. Clearly it wasn't. The community didn't want it. The commission didn't want it. So that component of the code needs to be fixed tomorrow, if not today.
Thank you. Well, what do you think about the obsidian building and how it came about or may not come about?
Well, I know those neighbors worked for over 4 years fighting against that development, and I went and spoke about it and supported them as well. And for those of you that don't know, basically the developer is playing games with the interstitial space. So they're making it much higher than any other building in downtown Sarasota. So a couple of things. I am not in favor of administrative approval. Unfortunately, we have it. Basically, you check the boxes, our voice is taken out of the process, and we have no say in how our city grows. We could tweak that definition and put our voice back in it. So that's one thing that I like to do, because the more we have our voice in the process, we always know we get a better project when we work together and come together. I would also like to see, now, of course, because of SB 180, our hands are tied right now, but I would like to see the city go back to, so the developers can't play games, go back to feet rather than stories. We used to have 180 feet was our max, and that changed along the way to stories. So if we stick with a foot height, they can't play the games that they're playing right now. So I am against the obsidian. I support those neighbors that have been working very hard for that. And yeah, we've got to tighten up our codes so the developers stop finding the loopholes.
Could you just take a minute and say how would that process work about tightening up the code? How does that happen? A referendum by the city, or how does that work?
No, we have to sit down with city staff. The commissioners need to talk to the city manager, give them direction, and then the city manager needs to talk to staff, and we need to figure out how we make our codes better so the developers don't.
Okay, that sounds like all in-house.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. What do you think about the obsidian?
Well, I am on record, having spoken on this twice, and I will not say anything that I didn't say during that quasi-judicial public hearing, because that is public record. Otherwise, I will not answer anything having to do with it, because we are still in mediation right now.
Right.
The neighbors worked very hard to make their opinion clear. They're the surrounding neighbors, which is what our code calls for, compatibility with the surrounding neighborhood, not a neighborhood a quarter of a mile away, but the surrounding neighborhood. And this surrounding neighborhood came to the city commission and said, this proposal is not compatible with our neighborhood. The height and the setbacks are two of the big things that they found not compatible. And when this went, it was rejected by the city commission, the adjustments. We were limited to the adjustments. And when it was appealed, that opened up the site plan, which allowed the standards for review to take everything into consideration, including the compatibility for the second time around. And on the second time around, we had to consider compatibility. They came back from their mediation saying they were going to put some vines on a wall, add a loading space, and some other things. And I asked very clearly of the developer, would you consider lowering the height of the building? And the answer was no. The first residential unit starts at 80 plus feet. That's the first residential unit. So that's at least an 8-story building, considering the interstitial space. So, it could be higher than that. But picture an 8-story building. Those first 8 stories are parking garages and amenities and things like that. They had double the parking requirement than they were required to do. So if they cut that in half, that would take 2 to 4 floors right there. And I asked if they would consider that. They said no. I said, what about setbacks, which was the other concern, compatibility concern? And they said no. So that's what you do. You have rules and laws that we're required to follow. We don't say yes and no because we like them or we don't like them or we think it's pretty. You're required by law to follow the rules. And I asked the question of the developers, these are items of compatibility. Would you change them? Because adding a vine on a wall is not what they're asking. And they said no. So now we voted a very strong city commission 4-1, and it is back in the process. So I don't know where it is right now, but that's exactly how I felt both rounds of Obsidian.
Thank you. You know, it strikes me how different it is today than it used to be. When Arvida came to town in 1959, they had a gathering at the municipal auditorium, 1,000 real estate people and brokers, and they were trying to convince them, basically, please let us come in. You know, they're literally dying to get here, and they're trying to please. He said, you'll find us to be good neighbors. Now you've got somebody that can see what the rules are, evidently doesn't give a damn, and then just tries to interlope. It's just such a remarkable difference in technique and style. Okay. Is there, I think we've addressed this a little bit, but is there a state law that hamstrings city government from curtailing developers?
Yes.
Tell us about that. Or maybe let me, Rob, would you address that?
Yes, there are two specific, the Live Local and the SB 180. The SB 180 was put into place after the hurricanes to help, ostensibly to help people be able to build back and repair faster with less regulations and permitting issues. It is on the books, though, until at least next August, and that is if we don't get hit by another hurricane. And that law specifically says the city cannot institute any more stringent regulations on building code for the entire city, not just the coastal sections. So that one hurts, and we just discussed greatly what Live Local can do, and it again hamstrings what the city can do, and being in charge itself. To rule our own city, municipal rule, you have to have the ability to change code. Sometimes the codes are good and you want to make them stronger, and sometimes they're awful and you get the Obsidian. I mean, I've been hearing from people for 4 years about plans for the Obsidian, and people who live in tall buildings right next to them are like, this is outrageous. How is this happening? So it's not just the people in the single family homes, it's people across the whole city. So that was a project that went to the letter of the law because of the way the laws changed. So both of those are the ones that I'm aware of that restrict municipal, the SB 180 and Live Local are severely restrictive to municipal rule.
Okay, yeah, would you address those two ordinances, the 180 and the other one?
Right, so Live Local permits, for a tiny fraction of attainable housing, which is not really affordable for most people, to build in any mixed use or commercial zoning. And then SB 180 basically ties our hands for at least another year to do anything about it. There's still some things that we can do though. So for example, how did the Obsidian got paused, stopped? There's compatibility requirements. And they don't have much teeth, but they have some. So if the traffic, concurrency is not exactly working, setbacks, trees, things like that. So there are ways to push back, and I think we should. I think there's some staff that's not pushing back as much as they should, but I'm happy that the commission, did what they did with the Obsidian.
Sure. There are some code changes that we can make irrespective of Live Local or SB 180. Unfortunately, Live Local doesn't sunset until 2032. So it's incumbent upon the Sarasota City Commission and the Sarasota County Commission to have good relations with our delegation to Tallahassee to push them to early sunset those two ordinances. And we have not been successful so far. I'll work with them and I will push them hard. Even at a Tiger Bay where we had the state delegation there, no one asked a question about that. And I was just dumbfounded at that. That's one step. The other step that we can do is there are some code changes that we can make that we will not be violating the constraints of 180, but it does tie our hands significantly.
Well, do you want to address that?
Sure. Well, Live Local, it's... Hello? It's on. Well, Live Local isn't a small percentage, it's actually 40% that affordable they have to supply. But that 40% is at 120% annual median income and at 120% AMI. And what that's really targeting is somebody making close to 6 figures. So it's not fixing our affordable housing crisis. Somebody making, to kind of quantify that for you, somebody making $45,000 a year falls into the 60% AMI bracket. So it's just, again, a giveaway that the state gave to the developers. It will never fix our affordable housing crisis. And then SB 180, yes, our hands are tied because of SB 180, and it did come about because of the storm system trying to make it easier for people to rebuild back, developers to rebuild back. I also want to kind of mention Section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act. So this gives us some good protections, but the federal government, it keeps our voice in the process, but the federal government right now is trying to play games with that and take our voice out of that process as well with our historic preservation. So that's one we need to keep an eye on and make sure that they don't take away the protections that we have now and our voice in that process.
Jen, what do you think what was the greatest landmark that Sarasota lost that it should not have lost?
Ringling Towers is one of them. The Selby Library is another one of them. So absolutely, I mean, and then there are smaller ones that we've lost. You know, the Palm Apartments was awful. That was denied by the Historic Preservation Board and reversed by the City Commission. I voted against it. And the Hache House. I mean, they go from small to big, but there are so many of them.
Right.
Lido. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, well, what do you think?
Well, what was the question? Well, I would say I think the John Ringling Towers. But I do have a list, it's actually for one of my speeches I did at City Hall, and I started out basically listing all the things we've lost. And the cases, Bayfront Mansion, the John Ringling's Tower, the home of John Gillespie, the Prue School, the Lido Casino, Miramar Hotel, the first Sarasota Hotel, Miramar Auditorium, the Tim Siebert Lighthouse, Gee Whiz, McClellan Park School, Ralph Twitchell's Hache House. So we've lost a lot of our history. We have to do better. So I would say John Ringling is probably the most important one, or the one that most people know, but they all count.
Well, you know, the sad thing about the John Ringling Towers is that the Crown Plaza hotel chain actually had a plan to save it. And I got to be friends with one of the particulars, and he said they couldn't believe that they let that hotel go, that it would have been a beautiful synergistic relationship with the Ritz-Carlton.
Didn't they keep a piece of it? No? Oh, you know what, it wasn't that, but there was a house on that corner. That they moved, they did move.
No, they didn't move it.
I thought that got moved. What?
No,
There was a piece of property there that got moved. A building, no?
He said
No,
he
you're
was-
talking about the house that was moved, that was on Gulf Stream, that was moved down to the corner of Coconut.
Maybe doesn't. I just remember I was up early that morning. I used to teach spin classes at 5:30, and I was following that house. Well, it was moved, so.
I was there, so I can't stare.
Buford and Dave's said they were going to spend an extra $10,000 to save the pickle house, and it went down anyway.
We've lost a number of things. I was glad to hear you mention the Prue School. That was a really cool building there on Laurel. I was very much involved with the John Ringling Towers Foundation, and we had a gentleman who built theme hotels in Orlando, and his daughter was going to prep school with one of the Ringling Air kids, and he wanted to in fact, he had delivered a proposal to lease floors 2 through 6 of the Ringling Towers, and he was going to renovate that and spend all of his money on the interior renovations. The foundation was going to take care of the exterior. And we had Reason Shoes from St. Armand's. He was so enthused about taking the whole first floor, except for the Matoga building or the Matoga room and one other room that was going to be used for arts tickets, that he had his whole staff in there for a dinner. And he was devastated when that when that did not come to fruition. So we had an opportunity to change that. There was a lot of pushback. There was a lot of resistance. A lot of people wanting the Ritz-Carlton there, but there was a real strong effort from a lot of good Sarasotans to try to save that. We lost that one.
Yeah, there's that statue, nobody cares and nobody's listening, because people did speak very loudly about saving that. Rob, do you want to say anything about?
Well, that would have been the one that I picked. I mean, I've been here 11 and a half years, and to me, to the history of John Ringling and the circus is what makes Sarasota great. And I think at the museum, they should even push more for more circus history, because it's what I heard stories from people who were little here and watching when the circus was in town after their tours and interacting with all the people, and to have John Ringling build a hotel so people could come and stay with him and his family and his friends is a great thing.
He didn't build it. Only Burns built it, and Ringling got it for the song during the Depression. But your point's well taken.
But that, to me, the history of this city starts with Ken, and then Selby, and Bertha Palmer, and the other people who came after. And I think we should have kept it. And I think that goes back to the U.S. Garage, because we're talking about something that we really could have saved. And that there's no excuse other than the people who owned it just sold it because they wanted to get rid of it.
All right, let me wind this up. Why don't each of you take 2 or 3 minutes to kind of sum up your position on preservation and history of Sarasota? Jen?
I also thank you all for being here, of course, and thank you again to the candidates. I did want to address the question about preemption, because I didn't get a chance to answer that question. And what I did want to say was that the state does preempt us constantly here in the city of Sarasota. I'm very active in the Florida League of Cities. I'm on a regional policy board. I'm on the Federal Action Strike Team. I'm on the Regional Minnesota League of Cities. I'm on the Advocacy Committee. I just received my 8th consecutive Home Rule Hero Award that the Florida League gives out to. I was the only one in our commission to receive it. And it's not patting myself on the back, but it's work that I put into advocating on your behalf at the city level, at the state level, and the federal level. Because if we don't do it, again, nobody hears us, right? You have to go and do this advocacy work. You meet with them there, you meet with them when they are here. And it is really important because most of the people at the state and the federal level have never been here at the local level. They have no idea how it works. So it's really important to explain to them how local government works and why what is good for Sarasota is not necessarily good for St. Pete or Miami or Tampa or Polk. I mean, we have home rule authority, and we should have the ability to tailor our rules for our citizens. Those have to do with public art. It has to do with historic preservation. It has to do with trees, sustainability, plastics, our elections, the way we do things. So it's really important that we continue to advocate at those levels, because we are getting preempted again and again and again. And as everyone said here, it makes it very difficult for us to do what you're asking us to do. The 3 things that I said in the beginning that I think we can do and should do immediately to help our historic preservation effort, we can do in-house, so to speak. Pull the historic preservation department out from under the planning department, make them their own independent department. Have the designation simpler, one meeting, and have the demolition more stringent, 2 meetings. That's something we can do. And then change those 7 standards. I'm not even sure if number 7 should be in there at all. It's an out for every single time. And so those are the things that we can do. That will add real teeth. We need to continue to work with the Alliance for Historic Preservation. We introduced the Transfer of Development Rights program. It is big, and it's going to be more and more impactful. It makes sense some areas, and it doesn't make sense other areas. And we need to continue to evaluate that and talk about that as a tool for historic preservation, because that is real. And other things.
That is that.
Would you like to wind it up with your vote?
Sure. Thank you, everybody, for this opportunity. Very much appreciated. So I got involved with historic preservation when I met Erin, and she asked me if I wanted to be a scribe for the Baymo Lodge charrette. And I was like, what's a charrette and what's a scribe? And I did it. So I learned very quickly on the fly. We also had the first walking tour in my neighborhood that the Alliance did, the Arlington Park neighborhood. We were the first tour that they had, so that was a great experience as well. My neighborhood is an historic neighborhood. Unfortunately, we've lost a lot of our history. We are one of 6 to Save. Arlington Park was one of the Alliance's 6 to Save program. But unfortunately, we've lost a lot of our circus history. Our neighborhood was where the circus performers used to live. We still have one magnificent circus home on Prospect Street. And like I said, and the Arlington Park neighborhood is working on a historic marker right now for our neighborhood. So I'm very passionate about historic preservation. I've spoken many times in front of the Historic Preservation Board. I've spoken many times in front of the City Commission about trying to save our history. So let's save what we've got left. It's invaluable, and again, once it's gone, we can't get it back. We have to represent and do all these wonderful architects. We have to make sure we're keeping and protecting what they gave us, the gifts they gave to us. Thank you.
John?
Thank you all for being here today, and Jeff, thank you for moderating. I really like this format. It really is much nicer than some of the ones that we've been at. It's much more casual. So I've been involved with historic preservation for years, as I've mentioned, my involvement with the John Ringling Towers. I'm very fortunate enough to own 2 historic buildings downtown. Pat Ball, who is the contractor in Sarasota to work on historic structures, worked on the Ringling Mansion and a number of other buildings around town, has been my contractor for years and has worked on my buildings. It's not easy. We talk about grants for historic buildings. They're not easy to get. I've never been successful in getting one, but still we maintain it and keep them in very good shape because we're very proud of them and we're proud of our historic history. I think from a code standpoint, as we get into this master plan update, we need to strengthen our historic preservation section. We need to push that. I like Jen's idea about strengthening the review process. I think that could go a long way to help us a lot. And I brought some props today. And so I hope that you all have read this and
I didn't write that.
Jeff, I was just going to say, no this to you. And I've read all of your books, of course. But this is Jan. This is Jan Matthews' book. She was the historian for Florida. And she lives here on Red Rock Lane. I think she's still with us. Her husband recently passed away. But it is the quintessential, very complete history of Sarasota. Jeff's books are wonderful. I love them as well.
Don't wait for that, buddy.
I still have them on my bookshelf. The other that I brought is, this is one of the original John Nolan master plans. And this is from 1926. My brother-in-law was a historian and a collector of ephemera. And he did a lot of work over the years of preserving old Sarasota history. He had postcards, he had brochures, every book on Sarasota that was ever written. And one year for Christmas, he gave me that as a gift, and I'm very proud to have that. So thank you all very much.
Thanks, John. I won't forget that.
So thanks for listening today. And I didn't come here to out history my fellow candidates or people in the room. The commission is a representative body. The commission should partner with all of you. And I'm one of those people that is going to read about the Ringling Towers and the casino in the books. Some people here actually got to experience this amazing history and culture. So when you hear about these projects like US Garage and even the Ringling Towers, this is not a policy failure, it's a process failure. I'm an engineer, I fix broken processes for a living, I've been doing this for 20 years, and I came here today to offer solutions that we can do today. And seeing that, you know, we're losing all this history, even now, is very disheartening, and I hope you get the opportunity to fix that.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, fellow candidates. Thank you, Jeff, for your passion for the history of Sarasota and keeping it preserved. I've been living preservation of historic structures since I was 22 years old. I'm 57 now. Did it my entire time from 22 on in New York. Been doing it here in Sarasota with the Selby House and the Payne Mansion, and some advice I gave once the Leonard Reed House was moved. And I think we need to strengthen the Historic Society, the historic preservation line. We need to make sure that everyone in this city who lives here knows about it. What I think the biggest issue in the city when it comes to almost anything that's municipal related, most people retire here because they want to go to the beach. They want to go to a museum, they want to have a nice dinner, go to a show. They don't get involved. And I think if we educate, and if we have in the historic structures that have been saved, we have information pertaining not just to that structure, but to the Alliance and the preservation societies. We can work with them to make everyone aware of it. Go into the schools if we can. Education, like I said earlier, education, but with enthusiasm, is going to bring people closer together. And we could do that, and we could strengthen our rules in the city, but it's beyond that. You have to have people who are willing to preserve what they already own. And I think we could do that too. And if we do it together, we'll definitely get there. And I will do that as a commissioner. I will go out and scream from the rooftops. Let's save this, let's save, our history is almost as important as our future.
Thank you. Well, I want to thank all of the candidates and wish you all the best of luck. I want to thank you all.